She stood in our living room and asked me for 1 week without her husband. I gave her the rest of her life instead. This is Leo Narrations. And this one's about the moment a marriage stops being a partnership and starts being a performance. And what happens the second one person stops playing along. If you've ever said yes a little too fast, just to watch someone else's face fall when they realized you meant it, you already know the feeling I'm talking about. What you don't know yet is why she panicked, and it isn't the reason you're guessing. Comment where you're watching from, hit subscribe if this is your first time here, and let's get into it. Emily came home on a Thursday still wearing her work blazer, which was the first thing that told me something was coming, because she always changed the second she walked in the door. She didn't sit next to me on the couch either. She perched on the arm of it, like she was ready to stand back up the moment she finished saying whatever she'd been rehearsing on the drive home. "I need a week without you," she said. I set my phone face down on my knee. "A week without me." "It's not what it sounds like." "Okay, what does it sound like to you?" She did the thing where she smoothed her skirt with both hands, even though there was nothing to smooth. "It's from the program, Reset and Realign. You know I've been doing it since March." I did know. She talked about it most nights at dinner, usually reading me a line from that week's module like it was scripture. A coach named Bree Holloway ran it, some woman with a ring light and a workbook you paid $40 a month for. So this is Bree's idea, not yours. It's my idea to try it. The program just gave me the language for it. Then give me the language. What are you actually asking for? A week. Just 7 days where I'm not answering to being somebody's wife. I need to know who I am outside of us. "Outside of us," I repeated. She looked at the coffee table when I said it back to her. Not at me, and that was the first real tell of the night. "And where would you be for this week outside of us?" "My sister's. Megan already said I could stay there." "You talked to Megan about this before you talked to me." "I talked to Megan about a lot of things lately." That landed harder than she meant it to, I think, because she heard herself say it and went quiet for a second too long. I didn't push on it yet. I wanted to see how far she'd walk this out on her own before I had to drag anything out of her. "So let me make sure I understand the plan," I said. "You want to move out for 7 days, no contact, so you can figure out whether you want to be married to me. Is that close?" "It's not about whether, it's about clearing my head." "Those aren't the same thing, but okay. If it's just about clearing your head, 7 days seems short. Why stop there?" She looked up at that, confused, but not yet worried. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if a week of space is what you need to figure out who you are without me, maybe a week isn't enough. Why not make it longer? Why not make it however long you actually need?" I stood up and set my phone on the table. "Why not forever?" The color left her face fast enough that I almost felt bad for her. Almost. "That's not what I'm asking for." "I know. I'm the one asking now. If you need space to figure out whether this marriage is what you want, I'd rather you have all the space in the world than come back in 7 days because the calendar told you to." "Daniel, that's not fair." "What's not fair about it? You want to know who you are outside of us. I'm removing the timer so you can find out for good, not just because your program said a week was the assignment." "I never said I wanted out of the marriage." "You said you need to know who you are outside of it. That's a strange thing to need to know if you're sure you want to stay in it." You're putting words in my mouth. I'm using the words you actually said. If they sound bad out loud, that's not something I did to them. She stood up too, arms crossed now, and for a second I thought she might argue her way out of the corner she'd walked into. Instead, she said, quieter, "I don't know why you're twisting this into something so much bigger than it is." "I'm not twisting anything. I'm listening to exactly what you told me and taking it seriously. That's apparently a new experience for you tonight." I went upstairs before she could answer that. I heard her behind me on the stairs, still talking, her voice climbing the way it does when she's losing the thread of her own argument. Our bedroom still smelled like her perfume from that morning. I pulled her suitcase down from the closet shelf without really thinking about it, the same gray one we'd taken to her cousin's wedding 2 summers ago, and started laying it open on the bed. "What are you doing?" "Helping you pack. No sense waiting until morning if you're starting your reset tonight." "I didn't say tonight. You said you need to know who you are outside of us. I don't see a reason to make you wait." I opened her dresser and started folding things into the case. A few shirts, the jeans she wore to the farmer's market, a sweater for the nights that had gotten cool. I did it slowly, the way I fold things for a normal trip. Not fast, not angry. That seemed to unsettle her more than if I'd thrown the clothes at her. "This is insane. You're being completely irrational." "I'm being exactly as rational as the situation calls for." I held up a folded shirt. Can I ask you something while I do this? She didn't answer, so I kept going. About 12 weeks ago, you started this program. Around the same time the rebrand project started at your office, the one with the photographer. You remember when that kicked off? Her jaw tightened. What does that have to do with anything? I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm telling you what I've noticed because you asked me to take your reset seriously. And I am. Around week 9, you started staying late on shoot days. Somewhere around week 4, you stopped reaching for my hand when we watched something on the couch. I don't know what any of that means yet, but I know it's been building since roughly the time that project started, and I'd rather you tell me what it is than make me guess at it. She didn't say anything. She sat down hard on the edge of the bed and looked at her hands. That's what I thought, I said, and zipped the smaller pocket of the suitcase closed. It's not what you think, she said quietly. Then tell me what it actually is, because right now the only thing I have to go on is what it looks like. He's just someone from work. We talk. That's all it is. You just talked to someone enough that you stopped reaching for my hand 2 months ago? She didn't have an answer for that. She looked down at the carpet like it might give her one. I haven't done anything wrong, she said finally, but it came out smaller than she probably meant it to. Then why do you look like you have? You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Then help me understand it. Right now, all I understand is a pattern, and patterns without an explanation tend to fill themselves in with the worst version of the story. It's not the worst version, she said, too fast, and then caught herself. Good to know there's a version at all. She stood up, eyes wet now, though I noticed she hadn't cried yet, just gotten to the edge of it and stopped, watching me to see if it would work. I don't want this to be the end of something. I wanted a week. That's all I wanted. I know, but I think you already answered the question you were trying to ask yourself. You just don't want to hear it out loud yet. I set the suitcase by the bedroom door. Everything you need should be in there. If you think of something else, text me and I'll leave it on the porch. She picked it up with both hands like it weighed more than it did. At the front door, she turned around once. This isn't how I thought tonight would go. No, I said. I don't imagine it is. I closed the door before her taillights even left the driveway. The house didn't feel empty after that. It felt quiet in a different way than usual, the kind of quiet you get when a sound you'd stopped noticing finally stops. I went out to the garage a little after 9. I've got a workbench back there, and a half-finished side table I'd been building for Chris's new apartment. Walnut. Nothing fancy, just something to keep my hands busy while my head worked through things on its own schedule. I turned the radio on low and started sanding a leg I didn't need to sand, mostly to have something to do besides think. Around 10, I went back inside for water and past the home office, where our iPad sits on its charging dock. We'd set the thing up 2 years ago on a shared photo account so we could both drop pictures into the same album without emailing them back and forth. The screen was lit. A message preview sat across the top of it, from a name saved as Brett. Can't stop thinking about Tuesday. Tell me the week still goes how we planned. I stood there for a second longer than I probably needed to. Then I picked the iPad up, and instead of putting it back down, I opened the thread all the way. I want to be honest about that. Nobody handed me those messages. I made a choice to read them the same way she'd made a choice about a lot of things over the last 3 months, and I didn't feel great about it. But I didn't stop either. It went back weeks. Work talk at first, shoot schedules, a rescheduled session, a joke about the lighting in the loading dock. Then it started sliding, slow at first, the way these things do. Him saying he liked talking to her more than he expected to. Her saying she felt like herself again when they talked. Him saying his engagement had ended 9 months back and he wasn't looking for anything. Just, this was nice. Her saying she understood exactly what he meant, that things at home had gotten so routine she barely recognized her own life some days. Further down, from about a month back, I keep thinking about what you said, that you feel like you're just going through the motions at home. That's not fair to you. You deserve someone who actually sees you. And her answer, sent at 11 at night on a Tuesday, I remembered because I had fallen asleep on the couch waiting for her to get back from a shoot that ran late. I know. I don't know how to fix it without blowing everything up. The dates lined up with everything I just laid out on our bed 20 minutes earlier, almost to the week. The most recent message from that afternoon was the one already sitting on the lock screen. Right under it, from an hour before that, tell him it's just a program thing. He doesn't need to know the rest yet. So the week without me had never really been about me at all. I put the iPad back on the dock, went out to the garage, and finished sanding that table leg properly this time. My phone buzzed a little before midnight. A text from Megan. She's here, crying. Says you kicked her out for nothing. What happened? I typed back. Ask her who Brett is. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, who? I took a screenshot of the thread and sent it over without any more explanation than that. The call came in less than a minute later. Oh my God, Megan said, before I even got a hello out. I mean, I had a feeling something was off with her these last couple months, but I told myself I was being paranoid. You weren't being paranoid. She's sitting on my couch right now telling me you're being unreasonable about a week off. Meanwhile, she stopped herself. I'm sorry. This is not okay. This isn't a program thing. No, it isn't. What are you going to do? Exactly what she asked for. She wanted space to figure out what she wants. I'm giving her all of it. Megan was quiet for a second. She thinks you're going to call in a few days and apologize. She said you always do. She's about to learn that's not true anymore. I always kind of wondered about that program, Megan said. The way she talked about it, like it had all the answers. I should have said something. I just didn't want to be the sister who ruins things. You're not ruining anything. She did that part herself. I know. I'm still going to feel bad about it for a while. I called Chris the next morning from the garage, mostly because I needed to say it out loud to someone who wasn't related to Emily by blood. He listened without interrupting until I got to the part about the photographer, and then he let out a low whistle. A photographer, he said. Of course it's a photographer. You don't sound shocked. I'm not, honestly. She was weird at your anniversary dinner in June. Kept checking her phone under the table. I figured it was work stress. I didn't want to be the guy who says something and turns out wrong. You'd have been right. Yeah, I'm realizing that. A pause. What are you going to do? Just let her stay at Megan's indefinitely. I'm going to let her tell me what she thinks the next move is. I already know what I think it should be. And if she asks to come home before you've made up your mind, then she's going to have to sit with not knowing for a while. Same as I did. You doing okay? Better than I expected to be. You need anything, you know where I am. Terry's Turf Club, my treat. Whenever you want to actually talk about it and not just narrate it. I'll take you up on that. Her text started that afternoon and didn't let up for 2 days. I'm sorry about last night. I think we both said things we didn't mean. Can we talk? I miss you already. This is stupid. Then a few hours later, Megan says I need to give you space, but I don't think that's what either of us needs right now. Then, by Friday evening, a longer one. Your silence is really hurtful. I'm trying to fix this and you won't even give me the chance. I didn't answer any of it. I wasn't punishing her, or I told myself I wasn't. I just didn't have anything to say yet that wouldn't have come out as something I'd regret. I let it go to voicemail Saturday afternoon when she finally called. Rather than texting, she left one message. I know you're angry. I get it. But I've been thinking, and I don't think I need time away from you. I think I need time with you. Please just call me back. The irony of that would have been funny if it hadn't made me so tired. I called her back Monday evening from the back deck, after I'd read through the messages on the iPad twice more, and decided I wasn't going to let this conversation happen on her timeline. Thank God, she said, picking up before the first ring finished. I thought you might never. Who's Brett? Silence on the line, long enough that I almost asked again. He's a photographer, from the Rebrand Project. We're friends. Friends who plan weeks together while you tell me it's a program exercise. That's not... Where did you even... You left the iPad logged in. I saw the message on the lock screen. I read the rest of it after that, and I'm not going to apologize for that part, because you spent 3 months telling him things you never once said to me. Nothing happened, Daniel. Nothing physical ever happened between us. You didn't need it to be physical. You needed it to be him instead of me. That's the part I can't unhear, and no amount of nothing happened is going to talk me out of having heard it. She started crying for real this time, the sound different than the performance from Thursday night. I don't know how it got there. It started as work stuff, and then I felt like myself again when we talked, and I didn't know how to stop it once it started feeling like that. Did you ever consider telling me you didn't feel like yourself and not him? I didn't think you'd understand. You didn't give me the chance to. That's a different problem than the one you're describing. How long have you known? Since Thursday night. Since about 10 minutes after you left. You've known for 4 days and you didn't say anything? I've known for 4 days and I wanted to be sure I could have this conversation without saying something I couldn't take back. That's different from not saying anything. She was quiet for a moment. Is it over? Us, I mean. I don't know yet. I know it's not what it was 3 months ago, and I don't think pretending otherwise helps either of us. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. If I hadn't left the iPad logged in, if you'd never seen any of it, would you have figured it out anyway? I thought about that for a second, because it deserved a straight answer, not a quick one. Eventually, probably not this week, but you don't build a pattern like the one I laid out on our bed and expect it to stay hidden forever. I think you knew that too, or you wouldn't have looked so relieved when I offered to pack your bag rather than ask more questions that night. She didn't say anything to that. She asked quietly if we could talk in person. Not that night. Later in the week, once she'd had time to think about what she wanted to say, not what came out when she panicked, I agreed to Friday. Alt Park, the Overlook Path, 7 o'clock. Neutral ground. I wasn't ready to let her back into our house yet, and some part of me didn't think she should be surprised by that. She was already there when I pulled in, sitting on the low stone wall near the overlook with her arms wrapped around herself, even though it wasn't cold. She stood when she saw me. Thanks for coming, she said. You asked. I said I'd listen once. We walked instead of standing still, which I think we both preferred. Easier to talk without having to hold each other's eyes the whole time. I want to explain how it happened, she said. Not to excuse it. I just don't think you're getting the real version, and I owe you that before anything else happens between us. Go ahead. The program kept telling us that if you feel unseen in a relationship, it's usually because you stopped letting yourself be seen, not because the other person stopped looking. I read that and thought about how long it had been since I felt like you were paying attention to me and not just standing near me. And then Brett would ask how my day was and wait to hear the answer. And it felt like this. I don't know. Proof that I wasn't imagining the problem. So the problem was me not paying attention. I'm not saying it's your fault. You're describing it like it is, though. You felt unseen, so a stranger who complimented your work made you feel seen. So you built something with him instead of telling your husband the thing you just told me in one sentence. He was going through his own thing too, his engagement ending. It wasn't like he was some stranger circling a happy marriage. We were both struggling at the same time, and that made it easy to talk to him. Two people struggling at the same time doesn't make it appropriate, Emily. It just means you found someone whose problems made yours feel less like something you had to fix. That's not fair. Maybe not, but I don't think misery finding company is the same thing as an excuse. It's just an explanation for how it started. It's not a reason it should have kept going for 3 months. She didn't answer that directly. We kept walking, the gravel crunching under both our shoes, and for a while neither of us said anything. You stopped noticing me before he ever did, she said finally, and I heard the shift in her voice, the blame sliding back toward me the way it had in the bedroom on Thursday. You'd come home and go straight to the garage. We'd go a whole weekend barely talking about anything that wasn't logistics. Even the trip we talked about taking in the spring, you kept saying we'd plan it later, and later never came. That might be true. I'm not going to pretend the last few months were perfect, but being tired and quiet on a Tuesday isn't the same thing as choosing someone else. You had 100 nights where you could have said any of what you just told me, to me, and instead you said it to him. You could have told me the trip mattered to you, rather than letting it turn into one more thing you filed away as proof I wasn't trying. I didn't want to nag you about it. There's a lot of room between nagging and never bringing it up at all. You found the room to bring it up with him. I know that. Then what was the actual reason you didn't? She stopped walking. I stopped too. For a second she looked like she was going to give me another version of the routine excuse, the one about feeling unseen, but something in the question landed differently this time, and I watched her decide not to reach for it. Because it was easier, she said finally. Telling him didn't cost me anything. Telling you would have meant admitting I was unhappy and not knowing whose fault that was, and I didn't want to find out it might be mine. So I let it be a secret instead of a conversation, because secrets don't ask you to be honest about yourself. They just ask you to keep them. And the week without me, was that ever really about the program? She shook her head slowly. It started as the program's idea, but by the time I actually asked you for it, it was about wanting a week where I didn't have to choose between telling him goodbye and telling you the truth. I thought if I just had the time, I'd figure out which one I actually wanted without either of you watching me decide. It was the first true thing she'd said since Thursday. Thank you, I said. That's the first time you've answered a question instead of managing it. Does that change anything? It changes what I understand. It doesn't change what happened. I looked out at the water below the overlook for a second before I said the rest. You asked for a week to figure out whether you wanted this marriage. I don't think you needed the week, Emily. I think the version of you that doesn't need to leave to know what she wants never would have asked for it in the first place. The asking was the answer. You just didn't want to hear it out loud yet, same as you didn't want to hear it about Brett. She didn't argue with that. She just nodded slowly and wiped her face with the back of her hand. What happens now? I don't know yet, but I know it's not going to be decided tonight, and it's not going to be decided because you finally said something true at a park. Honesty's a start. It's not a fix. She nodded again and let me walk back to my car alone. Monday evening, a week and a half after the whole thing started, I was leaving the office when a man I didn't recognize walked up across the parking lot. Mid-30s, camera bag over one shoulder even though he clearly wasn't working. I knew who he was before he said it. "You're Brett," I said. "Yeah. Can we talk for a second?" "You can talk. I haven't decided if I'm going to." He shifted the bag on his shoulder. "I wanted you to know nothing physical ever happened. I know that probably doesn't mean much right now, but it doesn't actually. You didn't come here to tell me something I didn't already know. You came here to feel better about it." He didn't argue with that either. "Maybe, I don't know. It's been a rough year for me. My engagement ended in the fall, and talking to Emily was. It was easy. I liked being needed. You spent 2 months building something with a married woman instead of ending it the first day it started feeling like more than a work friendship. What was stopping you?" "Honestly, I didn't want it to stop. It felt good." That's an honest answer, at least. Doesn't make it a good one. I keep telling myself I didn't do anything, since nothing physical happened. But I guess I know that's not really the point, is it? No, it isn't. You don't need to touch someone to take something from a marriage that isn't yours to take. He nodded slowly, like that one had actually landed somewhere. He looked at his shoes for a second, the same way Emily had at the park. "For what it's worth, I think she really does. She talks about you a lot, actually. Talked. Even while we were. I don't need you to tell me how my wife feels about me. I've had a pretty thorough education on that this week already." I unlocked my car. "Go find your own life to fix instead of borrowing someone else's for a while. It doesn't actually work, whatever it felt like." He didn't say anything else. He just nodded and walked back toward his car, and I drove home without looking in the mirror to see if he was still standing there. Jenna called the next afternoon while I was in the garage, sanding a tabletop that didn't need any more sanding. She and Emily had done the whole Reset and Realign program together. Same accountability group, same weekly calls with Bree Holloway's team. "I had no idea," Jenna said, before I'd said much of anything. "I recommended that program to her in the first place. If I'd known any of this was going on underneath it, I never would have. God, Daniel, I feel sick about it. You didn't do this." I told her taking a week for herself was healthy. I helped her build the whole speech she gave you. I thought I was helping her fix something in herself, not helping her hide something from you. The program's not the problem. What she did with it is. I keep replaying our accountability calls in my head. She'd talk about needing to reconnect with herself, and we'd all just nod along and clap for her. Nobody asked what she meant by it. I guess none of us wanted to be the one who pushed. That's not really something you could have caught from a group call. Maybe not. Still feels like I should have. She's not coming into the office this week. Everyone knows now. It's not. I don't think anyone's being cruel about it. But it's not exactly comfortable for her there either. That's not really my concern anymore. She was quiet for a second. For what it's worth, I don't think she knew how to ask for what she needed. I don't think that excuses it. I just think it's true. It might be true. It's still not an excuse. 2 weeks after the park, Emily asked to meet at Findlay Market on a Saturday morning. "Somewhere ordinary," she said, instead of somewhere heavy. I almost said no. I went anyway, mostly because I wanted to see for myself whether anything had changed or whether this was just a better dressed version of Thursday night. She was waiting near the flower stalls, no makeup doing the work this time, and she looked like she hadn't been sleeping well, which, for once, didn't seem staged. "I left the program," she said, before I'd even said hello. "All the way out. Deleted the app, unsubscribed from Bree's emails, all of it." "Okay." "I blocked Brett's number, told him not to contact me again, and I meant it this time." "Okay." "I started seeing a therapist, not because a workbook told me to, because I think I need to understand why I chose the easy secret over the hard conversation, and I don't think I get to understand that on my own." "How's that going?" "Slower than I want it to. She keeps asking me what I was looking for from Brett that I thought I couldn't get from you, and I don't love my own answers most weeks, but I keep showing up, which is more than I can say for how I handled any of this back in the spring." She took a breath. "I'm not asking you to take me back today. I know that's not where we are. I'm asking you not to close the door completely while I do the work, instead of just talking about doing it. I also gave notice on the freelance project with Brett's agency, she added. Told my manager I didn't want to be assigned to anything he was shooting again, without getting into why. She didn't ask twice. It was the most grounded I'd heard her sound in a month. I believed she meant it. I told her that. I believe you, I said. I think this is real, and I think it's for you. Not for me, which might be the first thing about this whole situation that hasn't had an angle to it. But I didn't say but yet. I could hear it coming. I didn't answer that right away. We stood there while people moved around us with market bags and coffee cups, and I let myself sit with the question instead of reaching for whatever answer would end the conversation fastest. Let me think about it, I said. Not because I'm trying to make you wait the way you made me wonder. Because I don't want to answer this standing in the middle of a farmer's market. You deserve the right answer, not the fast one. She nodded, and for once she didn't push. I called her 2 days later, sitting on the back deck again. Same spot where we'd had the first conversation that felt like it counted. I've been thinking about what you said at the market, I told her, about not closing the door. I don't think I'm going to open it back up, Emily. I want to explain why, because I think you've earned more than just a no. Okay. I believe you're doing the work. I even believe it's honest this time. But none of that undoes the choice you made 3 months ago. The one where you decided it was easier to give your attention to someone else than to tell me the truth. I can be glad you're getting better. I can even hope it goes well for you. I just don't think I have to be the one standing there while you find out whether it worked. I understand, she said. I think some part of me already knew you'd say that. I just needed to hear you say it instead of guessing at it. I didn't want you guessing at this one. You've earned better than that even now. She was quiet for a long moment. Do you forgive me? Yeah, I do. That part actually isn't that hard, and it hasn't been for a while now. Then why isn't that enough? Because forgiving you and trusting you again aren't the same thing. Forgiving you means I'm not carrying this around like a weapon. Trusting you would mean forgetting what you were willing to risk to feel noticed by somebody else instead of by me, and I don't think I get to forget that. I'm not sure I'd even want to. It taught me something about what I'm willing to accept, and I don't want to unlearn that just because it would be more comfortable for both of us. She didn't argue. I think some part of her had known this call was coming since the park. Can I ask you one more thing? Sure. If I'd come to you 3 months ago and told you the truth instead of letting it turn into this, would it have been different? I don't know for certain. I'd like to think so. I think a marriage can survive somebody admitting they're struggling and asking for help. I don't know that it survives finding out on its own, after the fact, that the struggling had already been handed to someone else. Those are two different things to forgive, even if they start in the same place. That's fair, she said quietly. I wish I'd known that back when it still would have mattered. So do I. I'm sorry, she said. For all of it, not just the part that got caught. I believe that too. It doesn't change the answer. The papers went through about 7 weeks after that Thursday night, quiet and uncontested. No kids, no fight over the house or the accounts, nothing to drag out. We split what needed splitting over email through our lawyers and never had to sit in the same room to do it. She kept her car and her half of the savings account. I kept the house and the garage, which was about the only thing either of us actually fought to hold on to, and it wasn't much of a fight at all. She called once more, near the end of it, not to argue. Just, I think, because she wanted to hear something specific from me before it became official rather than just true. I told her again that I'd already forgiven her, and that it still didn't change anything, and she said she understood. And for the first time in 2 months, I believed her. I ran into her by accident about 4 months later in the parking lot outside Kenwood Town Center. She was loading bags into her car a few rows over. We saw each other at almost the same moment. Neither of us walked over. She gave a small nod. I gave one back, and we both got in our cars and drove out in opposite directions. I noticed, driving home, that I hadn't spent the rest of the afternoon thinking about it. That felt like its own kind of answer. In the months after the divorce was final, I did the things people always say they're going to do, and usually don't. I started going to the gym with Chris on Tuesday and Thursday mornings before work, mostly so I'd have a reason to get up early instead of lying there thinking. We started doing Terry's Turf Club on Friday nights again. The way we used to before I got married, before it started feeling like something I needed to ask permission for. I called my parents more. I said yes to things I would have found an excuse to skip a year earlier. Almost a year after the divorce, I was getting coffee with Megan at Coffee Emporium. We'd stayed close, oddly enough, closer, if I'm honest about it, than Emily and I had managed those last few months. Somewhere between her second cup and mine, she mentioned, almost as an aside, that Emily had moved to Louisville. New job, new apartment, a fresh start in a city where nobody already had an opinion about her. Megan said she sounded good on the phone. Steadier. I told Megan I was glad to hear it, and I meant that. Do you ever think about calling her? Megan asked, stirring her coffee. Not really, no. I think I said everything I needed to say to her already. That's a healthier answer than I expected. It took me a while to get here. I'm not going to pretend it didn't. The side table I built for Chris turned into 3 more after that. Then a set of shelves for a neighbor. Then enough word of mouth around Hyde Park that I started keeping a waiting list on a legal pad in the garage. It's not a business exactly. Not yet. Most of it just grew out of a habit I already had. The same kind of slow, unglamorous progress that got me through that whole year. One evening at a time, nothing decided all at once. Chris asked me once, over burgers at Terry's, whether I figured I'd get married again someday. I told him I honestly didn't know, and that was the true answer, not the tidy one. What I do know is smaller than that, and it's the thing I keep coming back to out in the garage some nights for no good reason at all. I don't want to be with someone who has to leave the room to figure out if she wants to stay in it. That's not a complicated thing to want. It just took me one very ordinary Thursday evening to notice I'd been settling for less than it, and I hadn't even known I was doing it until the suitcase was already open on the bed. Emily's doing fine these days, from what I hear. I hope that's true. I just don't need to be the one checking on it anymore.